Right now, we're seeing a couple of key trends. Two big ones off the top of my head are they're really moving to sort of better integrate their on-demand and linear channels, right? So they all have both. And then the second trend that we're seeing is what we're calling the sort of the push to quality.
Hi, everybody. I'm super happy to have today with me Alan Wolk, co-founder of TV Rev and a media analyst since a long time. I remember I met him in Amsterdam for an event before the ABC in 2015 or something like that. And he was already a very well-established media analyst. And I was a guy coming from sport broadcast and streaming, and I learned a lot, and I started following weekly. Hi, Alan.
Hey, how you doing, Carlo?
I'm good. So tell me a bit about Alan first, maybe TV Rev a bit, and then we go in more deep diving stuff.
Okay, sure. I can start at the beginning. I spent the first part of my career in advertising. I was a copywriter and creative director, actually, at a bunch of big agencies and boutique agencies, Ogilvy, J. Walter Thompson, BBDO, and at around, in the early aughts, I was working on IBM, and they wanted to do something about blogging. And I said, I should probably try writing a blog so you know what I'm talking about. And blog took off. I'd written a piece called Your Brand Is Not My Friend about how people shouldn't think of brands as their buddies on social media. It took off. Started getting asked to do consulting gigs on social and entertainment. Somebody came up to me and said, hey, HBO needs to figure out social television. It's a year-long gig. And I was like, okay, it's not going to get better than that. Jumped, did that, and learned a lot. Those were the days when Facebook would literally hang up the phone on executive vice presidents at Facebook and say, no, we don't talk to brands. Click. HBO was smart enough to also understand that at that point, they could get the Sopranos Facebook group back from somebody who owned it by giving them a box set of DVDs. Remember those? And of James Gandolfini. But in another 6 months, it was going to be all that plus $20 million. So they're like, yeah, we need to get on top of this. Did that for a while and was working a lot with a company called Kick-Apps. Kick-Apps added social functionality to websites. They needed somebody to explain how you could make money off of that. And that was my gig. Went on board there. And they got bought in about 2009, give or take, by a company called Pixel, which was building OTT apps. And this is right around the time when OTT was moving from being a very niche thing to being something that major media companies were interested in.
Yeah.
They said to me, hey, do you want to be our head of strategy? And if I had learned one thing in advertising all those years, it was how to become an expert in anything in just 3 months. So I joined. Nobody knew anything, which was good. And we were building apps, which was even better. Did that for a couple of years, and that whole industry was sort of not going anywhere. There's a lot of VC money, prices were dropping. Anyway, I left and I wrote a book about the television industry. The book was called Over the Top: How the Internet is Slowly but Surely Changing the Television Industry. And that title has proved to be very accurate because I wrote that book in 2015, which is about 9 years ago. And a lot of the changes are still happening slowly but surely. To my delight and surprise, the book was featured in a cover story in the New York Review of Books, which is pretty crazy. It was compared to a book that Michael Wolff wrote. Michael Wolff, who does all the Trump bios. He liked mine better. So that launched, that really launched a consulting business. I worked with MediaLink for about 2 years. That was a great learning experience. Still talk to those guys a lot. And then we launched TV Rev. It was through a group called Brave Ventures. TV Rev was sort of the thought leadership piece. And then we took it, my partner, Jason DeMata, and I took it and made it into business a couple of years ago. And that's where we are now, where we do analysis, we do special reports on topics, and we do content marketing, we do webinars, hosted dinners. We got a whole business out of it based on our thought leadership and providing an opportunity for other people to share their thought leadership. I mean, too often companies write really smart stuff. It sits on their corporate blog where nobody sees it. they give it to us. We put it out there. We've got over 50,000 people on our newsletters, and we've got about 300,000 plus on social media. So it's been a good business. Along the way, I coined a term that has become very popular. Do that, it's just something I always do, make up goofy names. And at the time, we were calling all the SVOD services flixes, because they didn't have, if you remember, they didn't have names. It was like, it was Disney Flix and HBO Flix. And we're like, okay. And then there's this other weird category, Pluto and Tubi and Xumo. And like, they're not the same as Hulu because they're free. So free ads became fast. Started calling them the flixes and the fasts. And then fast just took off.
I remember that article. I have to say, if you're not the inventor of fast, you're the guy that gave the name to fast.
Yeah,
and I remember that article because I started crafting strategies for my previous company, and everybody was and I saw it like, I don't know. Let's go, and then I tell you my opinion on fast at the beginning, and how it has evolved. But tell me the story of fast as you see it, especially bring me to today. I mean, not too fast, but bring me to today from where you started.
Okay, so initially, fast was, Tom Ryan from Pluto was actually, we can generally credit him for inventing it. And at the time, they were just basically taking, the idea was that, there's still a lot of television out there for streaming. At this point, Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu had brought up a bunch of reruns, but there's still a whole other content, a lot of other content out there. Let's take this, let's put this on TV and monetize it very much in the way that cable worked back in the day, where it's like, here's a bunch of reruns, we'll throw ads up against them, we'll create a good user experience. There's a lot of heart for this. People like lean back TV. So you sort of had two ways, like Pluto leaned heavily on the notion of linear channels, although they did also have AVOD. Yeah. Tubi went the other way. Tubi was mostly AVOD. They had a lot of movies as well as series. But in both instances, and then Xumo was in there and had sort of a combination. In all those instances, people really liked it. They're like, great, this is free. I don't, it's stuff that I sometimes I want to watch because I loved it when it was first on, or I'm doing something else and I like having it on the background because it's just comfort food TV. And it's very similar to cable's evolution because cable was very undifferentiated when it launched. And then slowly brands started coming out and introducing original content and just sort of establishing identities for themselves. Now, what really changed the fast market was not those three guys, but rather Roku. So Roku at one point said, hey, we should do this too. Let's launch a free stream, free service off of Roku, and we'll make advertising one of our business pillars rather than just selling devices.
And that's Roku channels, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Roku channel. And that was a huge, thing because it did start getting traction. They did start making advertising dollars. They're able to sell advertising to other people and get all the data around it. So it was a big thing. Seeing that, Samsung, LG, and Vizio, possibly in that order, I don't remember, I'm not sure, but they all said, hey, what a great idea. We should do this too. And they did. And they were very, it's been very successful for all of them. And there's a whole smart TV ecosystem around FAST. And in a lot of ways, what they do is very different than what, say, Pluto and Tubi and Xumo do. And let me sidetrack, click back to the screen there, that Pluto was bought by Viacom, then Tubi by Fox, and Xumo by Peacock or NBCU. And so they became affiliated with major media companies and became a wheel of those. And they function as their own separate apps. What's neat about, say, Vizio Watch Free, LG Channel, Samsung TV Plus, is that it really became the centerpiece of the interface. When you turn on the TV, it's front and center. And so it's a very different experience. So it's like, hey, you get free content right away when you turn on the TV versus the others are more like an app-based experience.
They function more as an app store, using a digital native terms, right? They're an app store for channels, but they're also the first thing, and they also trick a bit the interface to push whatever they want. Sometimes, like with my Samsung, and they're immediately available, right? That's a bit the difference.
Exactly. And then, and then you have, which was, sort of the coolest evolution in some ways is, Amazon rolled out Freevee, which they kind of, hide in Prime, but it is its own service. And they had a show that was, they had a show that was nominated for an Emmy last night, Jury Duty. James Marsden was nominated for Best Actor. And that's, the first time the original content on a fast made it that far. And I believe that the Weird Al Yankovic movie, which was on Roku Channel, also got a nomination, I believe, for writing. So that was, Fast is coming into its own right now. And they're all evolving. Right now we're seeing a couple of key trends. The two big ones off the top of my head are they're really moving to sort of better integrate their on-demand and linear channels, right? So they all have both. And the services, and when they bought the rights initially, they weren't sure how any of this was going to play out. So they may have had rights for linear for one and on demand for the other. So they're making it more seamless, which fits in with the user experience, right? If I am watching something on a linear channel, I go, I really like this, but I missed the first 3 episodes. Make it easy for me to go back and watch the whole thing. So that's easy. And then the second trend that we're seeing is we're calling this sort of the push to quality, where initially they would just take anything, they were launching, they would just take anything they could get. And right now they're looking to get, sort of just get better quality shows, more popular shows. And we're seeing that the major studios, HBO is selling off Westworld to the Fast. So we're starting to see, more name properties. They're branching out into live programming, into sports. So they're really, like I said, like with cable back in the day, they're really coming into their own.
My initial reaction to Fast was, oh, this is a step back. We're going back. I saw it in a going forward way is if you think of cable, is bringing cable, if you want, forward into streaming. But in the end, especially the trend that you mentioned now, I don't know if I don't want to create a new name, but interactive fast. So it's fast, it's linear, but then it's also VOD when I need.
Yes.
Will it be, and basically, which is what Sky in Europe, for example, with Now is doing. Now you have the channels and then the VOD. Will not converge to an hybrid solution that is the same for everybody, or you think there will be still, fast and SVOD separated?
Well, no, so one of the things, as you well know, that I always talk about is everybody has different definitions for things. So there are fast channels, which is the linear, but then there are fast services, right? So Pluto is a fast service, WatchFree Plus is a fast service, but they both have linear channels and they have on demand, often of mostly of the same shows. So fast is really anything. The defining factor of fast is that it's free, right? And ad supported. And when these companies sell the ads, they don't differentiate. They don't say, hey, want to buy it on our linear channels and want to buy it.
So
it's all the same. So I think we're going to see a lot more, that's what we're going to see more of, where it feels, more like Netflix, more like where it's just, it's a consistent service, or more accurately, more like old school, which is funny, old school cable, where you could watch stuff on demand and you could watch stuff linear.
Absolutely.
That's a fascinating thing in and of itself. How, if you remember, if I can go off on a tangent,
no worries.
Back in the day, like when you and I were first getting into this, the whole thing was they wanted to do TV everywhere apps, right? Because what was Netflix? Right? What was Netflix's big secret sauce was that at the time it was like, oh, you can pause in the living room and then 3 hours later pick up the show where you left off in the bedroom. That was huge. Yeah. And that's all consumers really wanted. But all of the networks were like, no, we're going to be the next Netflix. We're going to be the next Netflix. We need to, do our own app. And had they just let the cable companies, MVPDs, do TV everywhere, they wouldn't have lost all the affiliate fees, which are, billions, tens of billions of dollars that are outflowing. And oh well.
Yeah, the linear channel has a huge advantage that you can distribute it easily.
Yes.
Right. So you package somehow, and then it's easy to say to almost every platform, do you want a linear channel? When you obviously you can distribute VOD content as a single piece together, but as you start creating, an application or as an experience and which is possibly one of the biggest issue I never found a solution for. How do you, like, NFL Game Pass? So we moved to sport, which is my next subject. NFL Game Pass went from being a direct-to-consumer NFL app into DAZN. But it's not that the product is not, unfortunately, the experience, right? It's even if the brand is great. So the difference is they didn't sell the rights to DAZN. They sold, if you want, the brand and the product of NFL Game Pass. But they didn't sell an asset in the end. I think that's the problem with putting an experience on top of video, basically. But the question is now, how you see the sports streaming market evolving? And then maybe we will talk about what happened last weekend at the end. But in general, where do you see sport going? And I understand US and Europe, I see at the moment a bit diverging, to be honest.
Right. Well, I think sports is a couple of things are happening in sports. One, the 4 big US leagues, right? Hockey, basketball, football, and baseball are aging, and they're having trouble finding a younger audience. Now, we always divide sports fans into the USA. There's sort of 2 big buckets with a huge amount of overlap and gray area between them.
Yeah.
But there's what we call the ESPN fan, right? That's somebody who's happy to watch a basketball game so long as it's a good matchup. They don't really care who's in it. It's a good game, they'll watch it. Then there's the Celtics fan, right? The person who only cares about the Boston Celtics, and they will watch a basketball game so long as the Celtics are in it. And they tend to watch something that in the U.S. is called an RSN, or regional sports network, which has every game. And the RSN...
Bally Sports, Sinclair, I know the story. I was there.
Exactly, yeah. And so those guys have been having trouble sort of figuring out, making the move to streaming, finding their audiences, and all that. They were all propped up by the old cable system where you had to take the package. In other words, if you were an RSN and you could say to a Comcast or a Charter, hey, if we're going to strike a deal with you, we have to be in the basic, in your every package that you sell.
Yeah.
So when they move to streaming, that goes away. So they have to figure out, well, how much will fans pay? Will a diehard fan pay $40, $50 a month for access to this? What else can we do with it? So there's a lot going on there. So I think that's one piece of it in the US. The other is that other sports are becoming more popular. So you have, that's a niche area that you're going to see some on the FAST, some on the other streaming services, whether it's track and field or lacrosse, or even I know Pluto had televised the CrossFit games. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on that, there's an expansion of sports, and it's a great move for everybody because it is it's a live event that keeps people on, lets them sell more ad more ad space. People want to have the ads during sports. And at the same time, it lets them, they're able to promote their own service. So if you're Peacock, you can say, hey, check out these other shows that we have that you probably didn't know about. So,
And in terms of the big leagues going, so then we can discuss a bit MLS, Apple, but the big leagues going direct, like NFL Plus or NBA app, what do you think about that? Is there like a side move, or it has a future?
I think it's a good move again for a certain type of fan. Like, you're not going to get most football fans to buy the NFL thing, but you'll get a good hardcore, and those people are really valuable to you, and they're monetizable, and they'll pay insane sums of money for something like that. The same thing, with basketball and to an extent baseball and hockey. What's happening in sports though now in the 4 big leagues is they're all striking deals with various streaming services. Taking bits and pieces and putting them all over the place. And that is pissing the hell out of the fans, because they're like, oh my God, now I need to subscribe to all these services. I can't find the games. I have to subscribe to all these services I don't want to subscribe to just to watch the game. I don't know how to do it. It used to be with cable. That was what I paid for. I was happy to pay $100 a month because I knew I could get every game and it was all on the program guide and I could find it. Now I have to go to Google. So that's a real danger. I mean, they will lose They will obviously not going to lose every fan, but they're going to lose certain fans who just see this whole thing as a money grab, and it's just like, the hell with you. I'm going to watch something else.
But do you think so? So again, which fans? Because even in Italy, obviously soccer is the number one sport, like by far. they always say, "Oh, we're going to live." In the end, the problem is when they cannot afford. That's a real problem. But otherwise, it's chit chat, and then you still paying. It's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll lose younger fans who don't want to have to pay all this, who can't, who just sort of become cynical, right? I mean, you already have that, like they have to sort of think about the other stuff that's going on. Like, say, take the NBA. I can't tell you how many times I have heard from people, I feel like my team is a brand new team every year because, they're constantly getting traded. You've got, 5 players on the court. It's not like, either football, like European or American, where, you've got a big enough team where if you trade a couple players, it's not a big deal. And there's this sense that there's not, that the fans come last. And I think at some point, not in the next year or two, but over time, it sort of builds up. And
it's a fading loyalty, you're saying.
Yes,
the effect would be a fading loyalty.
Right. And with younger fans, too, because they have so many other options. And they also don't have the, the desire to sit there and watch for 2 or 3 hours. So that's something.
Yeah. I was talking to someone that told me recently, it's not that they don't love sport, but they don't want to consume it the way our generation did. So it's a different way of consuming a passion, if you want. And what do you think about the MLS and Apple, which is very different from what you describe now, right? Do you see a future in that?
Yeah, very much. I think it's a smart move. They do, it's a way, it's very odd brand for Apple because, in the US, soccer has a slightly upscale kind of Apple-ish kind of, it's a European thing and all that. And, so I think it's and I think, again, it's a younger audience would be interested in it. And it's just smart for them because it allows them to get ad revenue. Like Apple doesn't like to talk about how they have ads, but they have a huge ad business and, for their apps. And they run ads during sporting events. They run ads during their baseball games. They run ads during their soccer games. And it's a huge thing for them.
Yeah. So to close off last week, drama about NBC, Peacock, the NFL, the playoffs. Tell me your straight opinion at the end of it. At the end, sorry.
I think I think it was, put it this way, I think it was great promotion for Peacock. It got people talking about them. At the end, maybe there were a couple of fans who were pissed off, but I think most people went along with it. It wasn't a whole lot of money, so they subscribed for a month and then churned out. If they don't like it, but it was also a chance, going back to something I was saying before, for Peacock to go, hey, look at all these other shows we have that you might like. So I think for them, and that was a huge win. Yeah,
I published a video yesterday thinking, okay, there's a lot of criticism of spending 110 million on a game, et cetera, et cetera. But on the other hand, that same money would have bought them 2 seasons of halftime show at the Super Bowl, 50 million each, the Apple paid. Would it be better spent that way? At least debatable, no? Yeah. If you compare. Or I think it's like 15, 30-second slots for the Super Bowl. And again, maybe, but when you spend money in a pure advertising, I don't know. So I think it will take time to understand that the churn will make the difference, or the brand awareness sometimes.
Right, and I think with them, they really did need brand awareness. They were always that sort of, like all the other streaming services got a lot of noise. They had a rocky start because they had been, if you remember, they had been counting on the Olympics, and the Olympics didn't happen and all that. So I think for them, just like getting people, hey, they're here. We're here. That was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Oh, what a journey. So maybe I'll see you at NAB. I think.
Yes. Yeah, I should be.
If not before.
Well, I'll be at MIPCOM in Europe if you'll be there in April.
Okay. Good. Va bene. Thank you for the long chat, Alan, and see what happens in FAST and beyond.
Prego.
Ciao, grazie.
Ciao.